How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the Change Up. Let me paint a picture for you. Bottom of the ninth, tie game, season on the line. The camera cuts to the crowd, and one name is on everybody's mind, because even before that pitch is thrown, you expect something to happen. Baseball fans have always believed in something called the clutch factor. The idea that when pressure is highest, some players don't just survive, they thrive. But modern baseball analytics have spent the last decade trying to convince us that clutch isn't real, that it's just random chance, just selective memory. So today, we're going to take a look at a stat that baseball says doesn't exist: the clutch factor. But first, what does clutch mean? When fans say a player is clutch, they're not talking about WAR or OPS, they're talking about moments. Late innings, runners on base, October baseball. A clutch player is someone you trust when one swing can change everything. Guys like Bryce Harper, Jose Altuve, and Mookie Betts. These players don't just put up numbers, they've built reputations on when those numbers come. And whether analysts like it or not, these moments feel different. Of course, to truly define clutch, we first have to define what makes a situation a clutch situation. As I've said earlier, late innings, runners on base, playoff scenarios all add to pressure put on a player to come through in a moment. But how do we quantify it? For this, we turn to something called the leverage index. Leverage index essentially measures how important a game situation is before a play happens, looking at inning, score, outs, and runners on base. A perfectly average pressure situation would be a 1 on the leverage index. A high pressure moment would be something like a 1.5, and low pressure would be anything below 1. For example, bases loaded 9th inning tie game would be a very high leverage index, whereas a 3rd inning no score game would be a very low leverage index. So now that we've defined what a high pressure situation looks like, do certain players really tangibly perform better in those scenarios? Many baseball minds would tell you no, at least not reliably. Of course, before sabermetrics became widespread in baseball, the stat people would turn to when talking about a player's clutch factor were RBIs, or RBI for you grammar police out there. The idea, of course, behind this being that while RBI don't tell the whole story of a situation within a game, they do tell us that whatever the situation was, the player ended up driving in a run. And that's all well and good, and driving in runs is a clutch aspect of a player's game. But the problem is how many external factors can affect it. For example, a guy hitting in the heart of the Dodgers order may have 100 RBI in a season, whereas a guy on the White Sox may have 70. Is the Dodgers hitter more clutch? Possibly. But it's also possible that the better hitters in front of him provided him with more opportunities to drive in runs, and that the protection around him gave him better pitches to hit. RBI are a good indication that a guy can get a hit with people on base, but it's not the end-all be-all in terms of describing clutch. But of course, that's all we had for a long time, until some advanced stats began being introduced. You see, there are two main stats that are used to track a player's clutchness: win probability added, or WPA, and a FanGraph stat literally called clutch. And while both give us a concept of quantifying the clutch factor, they each have their own flaws as well. Let's first talk about win probability added. Win probability added is just what it sounds like. It measures how much a player's actions changed his team's chances of winning the game. Not how good the player is overall or how repeatable the skill is. Just what actually happened in the context of the game. For example, let's say it was the bottom of the ninth, tie game, runner on second. The home team maybe has a 65% chance to win. Let's say the batter hits a walk-off single. Now the team has a 100% chance to win because obviously they've won the game. That hitter just added 0.35 WPA on one swing. That's WPA. Now, WPA is a good measurement of clutch because it weighs late innings more than earlier innings, it values high leverage moments, and it rewards plays that swing the outcome of games. So walk-offs, go-ahead homers, and big postseason hits all rack up WPA fast. That's why WPA leaderboards often match what fans feel. Now, the main flaw behind WPA comes from who the actual hitter is. For example, say you have two games. Both are in the bottom of the ninth, tie game, 2 outs with a runner on third. The home team on Game 1 has Nick Allen up to bat, and the home team on Game 2 has Aaron Judge up to bat. Let's say they both hit a walk-off single and add 0.35 to their WPA. We would assume, based off of their WPA, that both hitters were just as clutch as the other, seeing as how they were both put in the same scenario. However, some people would argue that Aaron Judge, who hit .331 last year with an 1145 OPS, would have been far more likely to get a hit than Allen, who hit .221 with a .535 OPS. The argument here would be that Judge isn't necessarily more clutch than Allen, he's just a better hitter in general, so he's statistically more likely to get a hit, clutch situation or not. And that's where the FanGraph's clutch factor comes in. FanGraph's clutch asks the question of, did this player perform better or worse in this high leverage situation than we would have expected him to play overall? That last part is key. FanGraph's clutch looks at how much WPA a player had in high leverage moments and how much WPA we'd expect him to have as well, given his overall performance in the situation he was in. Then it compares the two. Positive clutch means he did better than expected, negative clutch means he did worse, and zero means he performed exactly like his talent level would suggest. And this is where we run into the problem with clutch. If you're an elite hitter, expectations are already very high, and matching your usual level of production in big moments results in neutral clutch. You have to exceed yourself to get a positive score. So a superstar theoretically can have a huge clutch moment, rack up WPA, and still finish with a neutral or either negative clutch at the end of the year, because it's what he normally does. Jorge Polanco led the league last year in clutch factor with 1.76, but are you taking him in the bottom of the ninth over Aaron Judge? This is why analysts struggle with a player being clutch. It's extremely difficult to quantify and it doesn't always repeat. A player can be incredible in high leverage spots one season and be completely average the next. The sample sizes are small, the variance is massive, and baseball more than any other sport is built on failure, which makes it even harder for someone to be clutch. You fail 7.5 times out of 10 on average anyway in baseball, so if someone fails when it matters more, does that make them unclutch? So the analytical conclusion became simple. There is no clutch skill, only randomness. And that makes sense. Except, it doesn't. We as fans can feel clutch simply by watching. Clutch isn't a guaranteed skill. It's not something every great player has. It's rare, it's unstable, and it's incredibly hard to predict. But it's not imaginary. Clutch lives in the moments where talent, preparation, and confidence collide. Baseball analytics didn't kill clutch, they just proved how difficult it is to understand. And maybe clutch isn't something you can project or teach. But when the game's on the line and the season comes down to one swing, we all know exactly who we would want coming up to the plate. Thank you everybody so much for watching, it really does mean a lot to me. If you liked the video and you want to see more topics like this, please make sure to like and subscribe. I tend to come out with videos once or twice a week, so please be on the lookout for those. And as always, I will see you in the next video.